Hello, I'm Dr. Papia Bhattacharjee. And in this problem, we will be determining the continuity of a function. And there are like three different parts to this problem. So we have the function right here. It is x squared minus 16 over x minus 4. We have to first sketch the graph of this function. Then we have to figure out on which intervals the function is continuous. And finally, we will be discussing the discontinuity of the function, if there is any, and whether that discontinuity can be removed or not. So let's start by sketching the graph of this function. Now you can always plug the function expression in your calculator and graph it, but I always like to do some little algebraic manipulation and try to get an idea of what the graph will look like.